Hi, everyone. I guess just as a little bit more of an intro to fill in the blanks of the bio a little bit, given the topic that we're on, my first question to myself, on top of the questions that Cinda actually gave us, was who/what am I, or rather, who do I think I am? So in random order, these just came to my mind, and I just kind of typed them out. Asian Canadian, Southeast Asian diaspora, Malaysian Peranakan Chinese, Grace, Lin Su, that's my Chinese name, and then lastly, she, her. It's kind of interesting to me that came last of all to me, and all those other things that I identified with came before that. So on top of that, I guess currently I'm a reader, and inquiring minds want to know. So there's a few quotes, I guess, that are currently inspiring me, and I guess inspiring my creative stuff. One of them is an often quoted quote by Thomas King: "The truth about stories is, comma, that's all we are, period." And another one from Lily Cho. She's an academic currently based out of Toronto, and it is from her book, Eating Chinese, Culture on the Menu in Small Town Canada. And the quote is, "Those in diaspora often know better than anyone else that there is no home to which they can return, period." And this last one I always laugh at because dude wrote it in like the early 19th century. So therefore, Henry David Thoreau wrote in Walden, "The mass of men live lives of quiet desperation." And I'm like, yeah, no, women also, and everybody, all kinds of everybody lead lives of quiet desperation. But what I always took from that was, well, that may be true, but also the reverse is true. The mass of people lead lives of quiet epicness. All of us, if stories are what we are, we all have stories to tell. And it doesn't matter how small or how large or how weird you think it is. If there's truth in it, it's going to resonate with people. And it's going to touch someone somewhere. And this is something which I didn't realize until much, much later. And also, just quickly, I just want to acknowledge two people who are no longer here with us, who greatly affected my creative journey. One of them is Joyce Lam, who passed very recently, the founder of Vancouver Asian Canadian Theatre. She always showed up for things, and at the first play that I co-wrote and co-produced, she was there. And she could see me like literally sweating bullets. And she comes up to me and she goes, "Grace, producing is hard." And she went on to basically say, it can be very painful sometimes, and but it's worth it when on opening night you see the audience in there, lights come on, actors go on, you see the audience reacting, and it all becomes worth it. And that is something that has always inspired me, because if you think about it, that's basically #creative life, guys. Whatever your medium is, whatever it is that you do as a creator, it always feels like that kind of like giving birth type thing, gestating and giving birth to a thing. So thank you, Joyce. And also Jim Wong Chu. Jim Wong Chu is like hugely special because he is the reason that Kathy Leung and I co-founded Scripting Aloud, the script reading series nonprofit that we still run today. His vision was to have an event for LiterASIAN. I think it was in 2005. It's a long time ago. And he wanted it to be multidisciplinary. He wanted, not just fiction to be read, but also like factual stuff. He wanted stage plays to be read. He wanted poems to be read. He just wanted like a whole bunch of stuff to be read. And I remember that was one of the first few times at the time that a whole bunch of us up-and-coming, creators had come together like this, and we realized that we were not alone in our fight, and that we had a lot more in common than we thought, in spite of, any creative differences, because at that age, you're all like, yeah, so, my process kind of thing, right? But, so that was really inspiring and awesome, and from there, we basically formed this script reading group, and we read steady for 3 years, all original stuff from local playwrights, and anyway, and so recently we resurrected it again because we realized that there was still a place for it, and it's thanks to Jim, really. Thank you, Jim. And shout out to Rogi, because when Rogi was that angry young man, I met him. I met him on set. Now, I'm pretty sure that we were both possibly extras on this thing, and I can't even remember what the thing was. And this was at the Plaza of Nations. Before it became this no man's land, it was still the Plaza of Nations. And we're just like shooting the shite, right, la la la. And he told me something which always stuck with me, and actually really was a thing in my mind as I continue my artistic journey. He kind of goes, yeah, if they ask me to do an accent, I won't do it. I just won't do it. And he was a lot angrier at the time, so I'm not even really doing justice to the anger and the drive that was there. But and that was the first time that I kind of thought, oh, we don't have to be a model minority. We can actually resist, and resist firmly, and maybe it'll be okay. So there was no hint at the time that you were suggesting that fisticuffs would be involved in any way. But you were just like, dude, no, just be firm about that stuff. And I was like, damn. So this guy, I look up to this guy, Anyway, okay, so on with the rest of the stuff. How does being a BiPOC filmmaker affect my career? So one thing which I'd just like to put a little bug in your ear about is I've noticed that if you change BiPOC to, in my case, because I identify as a woman, if you change it to how does being a woman affect your career? Or if you're faced with anyone that appears to resist the idea that there is any necessity for special treatment for BiPOC or anything, if you change that word, that acronym, to woman, you see how fast their brains kind of go, oh, yes, of course. It's like, would you agree that women should be given the right to such and such? Oh, yes. Well, that's what it's like for BiPOC guys. It's a similar fight. Yeah, so that's something which I've just discovered. It's that intersectionality which has really helped me, I guess, see a lot of things in my own creative journey. The other thing which really affects my career as a BiPOC person is the fact that my family immigrated to Canada, and well, long story short, their marriage didn't work out, things happened, they both left, but I stayed because I felt that immigrant guilt. It's like they came here and they sacrificed, and now what? Should I just leave? Did I come here just to leave? And in terms of being an artist, I knew later on in life that neither of my parents really got to do perhaps all of the things in life that they had wanted to do. And I knew in part that their encouraging me and allowing me to do a lot of stuff was precisely because they had not been given those opportunities. And so I felt, what, I'm here in Canada. Sure, I'm pursuing, an itinerant, artsy, fartsy lifestyle. But hey, mom and dad, in a way, it's what you raised me to do. So you know what, I'm just going to stay here and do it. And yeah. And so that is another thing which keeps me going, really. And also because my father passed away about six years ago. And sometimes when things like that happen in your life, you kind of go, well, what is the meaning of life? And I came right back to that. It's like, you know what, you wanted something for me that you didn't have, and it's something which I happen to also really love doing, so I'm going to keep doing it. You know, it's like, it's the same way I feel about Joyce and Jim. The best way to honor them is to continue the fight. We're not going to say finish it. It's never finished, but we're going to continue it. Okay, so what obstacles and challenges? I'm just going to throw out a couple of quick stats, like just because they're quite illustrative. There's a theater group of women called the 3.7 Initiative, and this is based on a statistic that self-identified culturally diverse women and non-binary people hold only 3.7% of the artistic theater leadership positions in this country. 3.7%. It's a thing. And also, recently there was an audit of, an internal audit of Knowledge Network, which is a local, and also publicly funded broadcaster. And apparently, in the past 7 years, 98.3% of their pre-license funding went to production companies with what they term non-diverse owners. On the other hand, only 1.7% of that funding went to production companies owned by people of color. And none was spent on Indigenous majority-owned production companies. So that alone should illustrate the nature of what obstacles and challenges we face as like BiPOC and in my case, a woman. There are a few other things. One of them is expectation. We often, like if you're included in anything at all, you're expected to bear the weight of representation for all BiPOC, everywhere, all at once, of all time. You know, they'll look at you and they'll go, yeah, so we're thinking of like hiring like a Ugandan to do whatever. You know, like, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I can tell you what I think, but you might want to ask someone from, you know, with that frame of reference. And so that's quite challenging, because oftentimes that becomes some kind of obstacle and a barrier. Because then they go, well, you're useless, what do you know? You know, like, we tried hiring someone diverse, and like, look where that's gotten us, exactly nowhere. And then they never revisit that again. So that's like that's a really big one. Another one is overcoming inherent bias. One good example is that scene in Double Happiness where the Sandra Oh character is asked if she can do an accent, and she pulls out this like fairly cool French accent, and then her face falls. And you just know, like, as a performer, I just knew exactly what had just happened. She had gotten that look that says, are you stupid? What makes you think that someone who looks like you can do an accent other than a really cheesy Canto accent that may not even reflect what part of wherever you came from? And then she pulls out a Cantonese accent, and she leaves defeated. And I'm like, it's not as bad now, but we can attest to the fact that sort of thing and more subtle versions of that sort of thing are still going on. So it's like a thing. Another big one is logistics. It used to be you had to wait for the Chinatown episode in any series. Yeah. Or, oh, you know what? We've completely filled our quota of people that are not white for this episode, or this film, or this scene, or whatever it is. We can't have more than one, right? Yeah. So there's like one black person, maybe. There's maybe like one other, you know, vaguely person of colorish person. And sometimes they're allowed to have a heterosexual matchup, you know, so then that makes it two, and then that's it. So basically what it means then is that it doesn't matter how good you are otherwise, talent-wise, or how otherwise right you might be for a part. They're not going to put you in it. So it's a thing. So because I need to motor on here, I'm just going to motor on to how did I find my voice, which I guess is kind of important. It was really by finding out who I was at the time that I decided that I wanted to be an artist. And on top of that, because you never step in the same river twice, guys, right? And you never stop growing as an artist. You gotta keep checking in with yourself. At whatever interval you feel works for you and your process and your flow. You can't just be like one and done, like, oh yeah, I discovered myself when I was like, I don't know, 30. And you know, now I'm like 45 and still doing the same thing. You know, like, have you checked in with yourself lately? Like, is any of that stuff still meaningful to you? Is maybe something else more meaningful to you? Have you figured out why you're not booking those parts anymore? Have you figured out why, you know, like you got writer's block? Think about it, right? So that was really important to me. And another really important thing is, I decided at a certain point that art is kind of like identity, like it's meant to be communicated. You can certainly be an artist in your own mind and just like do your own art stuff. But to me, like, it's most important when you share it, when you share yourself, when you share your creative stuff with other people. Because then I really believe, because humans are communal people, that's really when you really feel the true power of the creation. Like, not just for yourself, but also for everyone else. And the other things which have been really important in my finding my voice are basically just read a lot of stuff. Watch a lot of stuff. Watch stuff you do not like. Watch stuff that people you know don't like. Because that just gives you this brain trust, if you like, of stuff. And because you're creative and inquiring minds want to know, at some point it'll shoot out somewhere. Somehow it'll shoot out. Whether it's a little tune that you suddenly create, or a poem that you just jot down, or an idea for, I don't know, a play, a film, right? Like that's how this works. You know, if you guys are on TikTok, if you guys like upload like little things to the gram all the time, guess what? I think you might be an artist. You might be a creator. You're actually putting content out there, buzzword, buzzy, but you're telling a story. You know, like, don't shortchange yourself, guys. You know, like everyone has a story and everyone can tell one. Sometimes you just don't realize you're doing it. And also by doing the work. Do a lot of stuff, fail a lot, I'm not kidding. Have people laugh at you, have people like wanna cuss you out. But the important thing is to find out why, right? If someone comes up to you and goes, well, that sucked, you kind of go, why? I really want to know why, right? Because if you don't find out why, what's the point of like communicating anything to anyone? You know, like you put it out there and then someone says you suck and then you just like crawl away and die. No. Yeah, we've all had that feeling, but no. Find out why and then decide whether they're full of shite or not after you have found out why they think you suck. Don't just, you know. Okay, so our future as BiPOC. I think key of it is the normalization of BiPOC stories and BiPOC identities. Like, you know, like you still walk into some rooms sometimes where you're just like, okay, one of these is not like the others. And sometimes you still continuously feel very othered because the environment is still not quite there. You know, like more of us need to be on stage, in front of camera, behind camera, in a position to green light projects that have BiPOC stories and BiPOC individuals in them so that we're normalized. And I think that given the current environment, there's more of a chance, there's more of a willingness, partly also because they've realized, because of Crazy Rich Asians or whatever, that like, you know, non-white people are capable of actually bringing in money. This is something which internationally the rest of the world has kind of known for some time, but yeah. So that's really key, I think, is just the normalization of non-whiteness. Because right now the universal constant is still whiteness and maleness. And I think that's like really the key thing. What message do I have? I think you need to find yourself. And by that I mean specifically, what is your particular, what did I write here? What is your unique blend of diaspora identity? Right, within the East Asian crowd, there's many, many different varieties of East Asian. You know, like, think about it, right? Like, exactly what flavor are you? What flavor of banana are you, right? Or what shade of banana, if you like, are you, right? What shade of coconut? Think about it, right? And how does that uniqueness express itself in your work? Or how would you like it to express itself in your work? I think sometimes as creators of color, we might neuter ourselves just to become acceptable, content-wise or identity-wise, to the masses, to our peers, sometimes most of whom are not BiPOC, you know, but there's no reason to do that. Because guys, I'm telling you right now, in specificity is universality. The more specific you are about the character you play, or the characters you write, or the things that you create, the more universal it becomes, because people recognize that. They recognize the truth in it. Whether it's emotional truth, or factual truth, or a truth, your truth. Truth is recognizable. And yeah, and that's something which I would say to do. You know, like, find your uniqueness, find how you'd like to express it, and then find some kind of truthful story and tell it. Make sure that you tell it. Don't be all like, no one's going to be interested. No one's going to be interested in a Khmer story of like my grandmother from like 60 years ago. Don't think that. That's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. Yeah, and the final thing, which is also really important, and I think Asian Canadians excel at, is find your people. And by that, I don't mean literally like your people. Like, wait, are you also a Malaysian Peranakan Chinese? Because if you're not, I'm not going to hang with you. Like, it's not like that. It's just, I mean, like, you're like-minded people. You're like-minded creative people. Because I don't think a lot of artists like to pretend that they create things like in a vacuum. Oh no, it's like my stuff, I came up with that by myself, all by myself. And actually, no, like nobody ever creates anything all by themselves. It's like art is not created in a vacuum, it's not formed in a vacuum. Just like identities are not formed in a vacuum. You can never say that. You know, you could be the most individualistic person in the world, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you sprang forth from Zeus's head entire, as like, yeah. So that's what I'd say. And do I have any time to? Oh, no time to do the thing. Okay, never mind. Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Because like there is no video, but I was gonna. Okay, you'll have to bear with my voice for like a little while longer. Oh no, that's great. That's really great. There's a solo piece that I'm workshopping through the Theaterland, I guess, at the moment. VACT, like MSG Lab, they workshopped it in 2020, and then in 2021, the Advanced Theatre Festival, Ruby Slippers Theatre, workshopped it some more. So it's an epically everyday Gen X immigrant tale. And it's called A Funny Thing Happened on My Way to Canada. So this is just the beginning of it. The setting is a bare stage. If you can imagine like 2 chairs and then another one up there. There's some propage on those chairs, but since we're not advancing to that part, I won't get into it. So at Rise, the Chabor woman, that means Chabo means woman in Hokkien, in the Hokkien language, which is a Chinese dialect. She enters in a Canada costume with toque, mitts, jacket, all with the contemporary Canada brand in Canadian accent. Bienvenue au Canada tout le monde. Welcome to Canada, everyone. A funny thing happened on my way to becoming this person, this immigrant, this late arriving, uninvited guest to this unseated place. Hashtag true story. I think I found myself. But before we get to that. So I'm at Waterfront Station, and this white guy walks up to me. He gets right up in my face. You bloody Jap. You want me to slit your throat, you bloody Jap? The friend who was with me said, just walk away. Just walk away, just walk away. So I walked away. But I felt bad because I wasn't what he thought I was. Then there was the time I was walking across the Burrard Bridge with my partner at the time, a white man, and there's a black woman walking across the bridge towards us. She stops and she says to my partner, "Are you with her?" He says, "Yes." So she says, "Why are you with her? Don't you know that they are the cause of all the trouble around here?" So he says, "Well, fuck you too," and he walked away. But I couldn't walk away from my own skin. Then this other time, I'm shopping in Chinatown and the shopkeeper addresses me in Cantonese. So when I respond in English, she said, "Hey, are you Chinese?" I said, "Yes, I'm Chinese, but I only speak English." So she said, "Te, if you are Chinese, why you don't speak Chinese?" Yes, I am. And no, I don't. I seem to be not a lot of things. So who do you think you are? Glances at her Canada costume, and then she turns to a Malaysian outfit, which is on one of the chairs, and she touches the jacket in Malaysian accent. "This belonged to my grandmother, my Peranakan Nyonya grandmother. Bangau, bangau, kenapa engkau kurus? Macam mana aku tak kurus? Ikan tak mau timbul, ikan tak mau timbul. Stork, oh stork, why are you so very thin? How can I not be thin? The fish isn't surfacing, the fish isn't surfacing." My grandmother, my mother's mother, was a tiger trapped in the body of a bird. Hands in. That's all the time we've got, right? Yeah.